Hey, this is Jason with the Bana Land Company, and today I want to talk to you for a few minutes about the top 5 factors that affect land value for sales of land in the state of Texas. So don't fall for the age-old thought or saying that, oh, I heard so-and-so is selling their land or sold their land for, a certain amount an acre, for $20,000 an acre, $10,000 an acre, $5,000 an acre, whatever it is. I heard so-and-so sold their land for $5 million. That's the classic fallacy that we fall for because we don't consider these factors. Now, I have bought hundreds of parcels of vacant land in 11 different states, and I've learned to recognize the following patterns that directly affect the value of land on the common market. So there are 5 different things. The first thing is location. So as with all real estate, location, 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 people say. Well, with land, it's not so much about being in a nice corner lot on a nice street with a nice house. It's not that type of location. One of the things that affects vacant land sales and rural land sales, which mostly is what I buy and sell, is distance to local cities or attractions. So you can have a beautiful 20-acre ranchette in Texas that's, in West Texas, and it's a 6-hour drive to civilization. Obviously, it's going to be less valuable than something that's in the hill country 30 minutes from downtown Austin. It's going to be a big difference in the location. So usually, what is the distance to local attractions? I usually look at, where could I get gas? Where could I get food? And where can I see other people? How far do I have to drive to do that? The second thing is developability, I call it. And developability, actually, it kind of entails many different factors. So things like the layout, I call this the topography of the land. Not a common word, but topography talks about like the layout of the land. So is it flat and smooth and easy to build on and access and drive on? Or is it, on a mountain face? Is it extremely hilly? Is it in a gully or is there a huge cavern or some sort of a canyon that goes through the land? Like, how does the property lay out? Is it steep? Keep in mind that over a 20% grade is very hard to build on. Usually it's completely unbuildable in all 50 states. It's considered unbuildable over a 30% grade. So how steep is the land? How does it lay out? Other things in the land layout I call developability would be things like the floodplain. So is there some sort of a wash or a creek or a river or a waterway near the land that would flood in times of rain? This often happens in the state of Texas. It'll be dry and then we get these monsoon rains, and we find out where the floodplains are very quickly. How much would need to be done to make the property buildable? Would we need to, spend tens of thousands of dollars clearing timber off the land? Would we need to bring in a bulldozer and spend months bulldozing? The developability. So the more work that needs done to develop it, the lower the value of the land. And the third factor is access. So the access is very important in Texas because there are lots and lots and lots of properties in the state of Texas that do not have legal access. They are essentially landlocked, which means you would need a helicopter to get to them. And if you have a property you cannot get to legally without trespassing, then you have a problem in the state of Texas, and it's usually pretty much worthless. Okay, it's not worth much at all. If you happen to own the mineral rights, that might be valuable. But a lot of times people own unaccessible land without mineral rights, not worth much. So what type of access? Some properties, the worst access would be none. The second to worst would be that they have legal access, but not physical. So there's an easement there, but there's no road. You have to, go four-wheeling, or there'll be trees in the way. You'd have to bring in a bulldozer. A better type of access would be a dirt road that's a legal road to access, but you might need a four-wheel drive, so it might not be the most convenient. The next level up would be a gravel road that's county maintained. So something that the county maintains is always a little bit better. And then the best and most desirable type of access would be to have frontage on a paved county maintained road or state, like a farm to market road. That would be the best type. So obviously the type of access that your land has will directly affect the value. There are cases where someone has great access just a mile away, and they have a great property on with paved road frontage. Their property value could be double or triple what someone's property that doesn't have access would be. The fourth factor that affects the value of land in Texas is utilities. Utilities. So how far away from power, water, and sewage is your property located? Now, if you're looking just to have an off-grid home site and you're going to bring in a camper and a solar panel and just stay for a couple of days somewhere out in the boondocks, that's okay. You can do that. But that type of property is not as valuable as something that has power, that already has water, has a well or has city water, a septic or a sewage hookup, because it's easier to build and develop. Now, bringing in utilities can be expensive, so how far you have to bring them in particularly matters. With electric, the number of poles you need to do to bring in, there's a price per pole that the power company will charge you to bring them in. So it's usually by the hundreds of feet. The distance will affect the price that you'll have to invest. With water, is there city water nearby? That's best. Do you need to dig a well? How deep would you need to dig a well? Wells can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 or even $50,000, just depending on how deep you need, what equipment you need. Sewage hookup is great, but you can also put a septic. That's not as much of an issue as long as the property perks. Most properties in Texas will perk. That's a percolation test, meaning they have to test how quickly the water will dissipate into the ground soil. But you can often put in a septic tank. The fifth factor, the final factor I always consider when looking at land values in Texas is local zoning regulations. So what does the local municipality or county allow to be built or developed there? Are there restrictions? Some counties have very little restrictions on land. That's always great. Some counties have a lot of restrictions, particularly around larger cities. Why? Because they're trying to keep things to develop in a nice and orderly fashion. Obviously, in a nice housing development, you don't want a chicken farm next door. So local restrictions will affect the land value. If the land is unrestricted and you can do commercial, ag, building, anything you want on it, that's very favorable. If it's particularly zoned for a certain factor, you're going to have a smaller market of people and opportunities you can do on it, which could affect the value of the land. So some factors to keep in mind in 2023 in valuing land in Texas. Now, do remember at the Bana Land Company, we are actively buying land in the state of Texas, so all over the state. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me or my team. You can go to banalandco.com or you can email us at banalandcompany@gmail.com. We would love to give you a cash offer on your land in Texas. God bless.